I kind of was getting lost in the sauce. This book had no right to be this good. Literal scum on the bottom of your shoe. This man's is the worst. Is it some literary masterpiece? No, but is it a hell of a lot of fun? Absolutely. Okay, let me get back to the plot. I'm getting way too excited right now. Okay guys, happy July. I hope your June was wonderful. Happy middle of the year. We've made it halfway through 2024. How are we feeling? How are we doing? This month, we found some good ones and I'm excited to talk to you guys about it today. Before we hop in, let's go over some stats for the month. So for the month of June, I read 10 books in total. The breakdown for that is 4 fantasy, 2 romance, 2 nonfiction, 1 fiction, and then 1 sci-fi. So again, we're doing pretty good on range. Out of the TBR we set from the TBR jar, we read 7 of the 8 books. The 1 book that I didn't get to this month was Self-Compassion. Since this is a nonfiction book, a self-help book, I already read 2 of those this month. I wasn't really looking for a 3rd. My average rating for this month is actually crazy because I feel like I'm a really harsh grader. I sound like a teacher whenever I say that. I feel like I'm a really harsh rater. It's really hard for me to give a 5-star, but you'll see. You'll see. We might have a couple 5 stars in this video. One of the books I read was a audiobook. So for my actual physical pages read this month, it's 3,760 pages. So cannot complain. Let's go ahead and hop on in. First book we read this month was The Lost and the Chosen by Ivy Asher. This is a fantasy where we follow our main female character whose name is Vina. And the story takes place in present day Vegas whenever we first start. And we meet Vina right before she's going into a fight. So she is a fighter for a living and she just kind of knows that there's something different about her. Her strength isn't totally human, but she doesn't know the reason why. On her 16th birthday, she woke up with all of these tattoos on her and gradually over time more abilities. One of those including kind of like super strength, which is how she got into fighting. One night after a fight, she's leaving the like sketchy warehouse this took place in and she comes across this like supernatural fight and she gets involved and uses some of her powers to help who she believes are the good guys. After the fight is over, the good guys who she helped, the guys were like, okay, thank you, but one, like, who are you? And they just start asking her some questions, trying to help her, because it becomes very clear very quickly that she has no idea about anything whenever it comes to the magical world. She kind of gets introduced to the idea that there are witches or sorcerers, there's magical beings like shifters, and there's just a whole world that she has no idea about that she gets introduced to. And that's kind of where I'll leave it because the story really just follows her as she learns more about her powers and as she learns more about the magical world. I rated this really low. This was my lowest rated book of the month to start us off with a bang. It just wasn't good. The writing, I didn't like it. I didn't like the writing style at all. Maybe it is accurate for how an 18-year-old would talk, but I just hated it. And I'm shocked by how highly rated this is on Goodreads. This is rated 4.32 on Goodreads, which is insane. I was kind of worried about the writing style from the start, just whenever I read the book description. So I'm gonna read you like a couple sentences and just think this is like how the entire book is written. Lucky for me, I've yet to meet someone whose ass I couldn't kick, inside the ring or out. Now I'm looking for answers and trying to piece together what the hell is going on. There's not a chance in hell I'm going down without a fight. I don't know, like, that's how the whole book is written and I just didn't like it. I think for me, like, I do just appreciate lyrical, pretty writing. Not happening with this book, just as an FYI before you go into it. I know this is just an introduction to the series, but I am not continuing this series. So I'm so sorry, Ivy Asher, but that is The Lost and the Chosen. Second book, similar author name, but different. We have Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This is another Kindle Unlimited book. This is our first romance of the month. And this is like a childhood rivals to lovers dual POV book following Dahlia and Julian. This takes place in the same world as the Dreamland billionaires. I would say read Dreamland first because this takes place after what occurs in the Dreamland billionaire series. So any relationships that were established within that series were referenced in this book. So let's talk about the plot. Our main female character, Dahlia, comes back to her small hometown of Lake Wisteria. Dahlia's been living in San Francisco where she was engaged and she had a interior design show. So think of like HGTV, Chip and Joanna Gaines type of thing. She comes back home kind of after her life falls apart a little bit because her relationship ends, her show gets canceled. She is not doing well mentally. She comes back home to stay with her mom and stay with her sister. First day she gets back into town, she runs into her childhood rival, Julian, where they have a lot of history. Their moms are best friends. They grew up together. They also went to college together, but something happens in college that made them lose contact, so they haven't talked to each other in like 8 years, and they don't have very positive feelings of each other after those 8 years. Julian runs a construction company with his cousin. He's done very well for himself, so he is the billionaire within the romance. While he's very close with his family, he feels very lonely at the end of the day because he has not been in a relationship for a really long time, even though his mom is continually always trying to set him up on these dates. Since their moms are best friends, in the background they kind of scheme up a plan where Dahlia and Julian have to work together. Julian agrees and makes his mom promise that if he agrees to work with Dahlia, she will stay out of his love life. The goal is to help Dahlia improve mentally, have a new project to work on, re-find her love for interior design, all of those things. So Julian and Dahlia team up to rebuild one of the historic homes within the neighborhood. And along the way, we find out more about what caused them to lose contact and rebuild their love towards one another. I'm definitely not alone, and my biggest criticism of the book is that it is excessively long. It is over 500 pages, which is really long for a romance. I felt like her Dreamland Billionaire series was also fairly long, but I don't remember them being this long. This book definitely could have been shortened. The first half of the book, before they were together, there was a lot of negative banter and negative interactions between the two. Really dragged for me. Once we got to the second half and, you know, the relationship was really building towards something, it was much easier to get behind the book then and much more fun to read about the romance being built up. But I definitely think we could have shortened this book by at least 100 pages. And if it was shorter, who knows, maybe I would have given this a 4.5 stars because I did like their relationship, but I settled on a 3.5. The length of it really was a detractor for me. A 4-star for me doesn't drag. A 4-star for me makes me want to pick it up continually. And there definitely were times in the beginning where I was just kind of pushing through it until the plot got stronger. So 3.5, I think that's a fair rating. I am excited to read the next book because book number 2 in the series, Love Unwritten, just came out, and we follow Julian's cousin, and it's like a single dad nanny romance, which in all honesty, I don't think I've read before, so I'm excited to see where it goes. But I do also think that this one is really long too. I'm pretty sure it's also over 500 pages. So Lauren Roberts, you write a good romance, but can we maybe do them a little bit shorter next time? That's my only complaint. So that is Love Redesigned. Okay, next let's talk about our first physical book. We have The Inspirational Leader by Gifford Thomas. Best part about this book, it's super short. It's like 120 pages. This is a very, very, very quick read. This is most certainly indie published and in need of an editor. Mr. Thomas wrote some good information in here, but how everything is brought together, there's a lot of repetition, so he makes the same point over and over and over again. It almost seems like some paragraphs were even copy and pasted in multiple sections of the book, and it made it feel like a series of articles that were bundled up into one book, all talking about how to be a more effective and inspirational leader and how to best lead your team. I read this for part of my self-development at work because hopefully one day I'll be a leader or a manager. And I think if that's also one of the goals that you have in life, this book does offer some good examples and some good insights and good starting points of where to learn more. I don't think I learned anything new in this book though. My company, I'm very thankful, offers a lot of leadership development programs that I've been a part of, where I have learned literally all of the examples that he talks about in this book. So if you're only just starting your leadership development journey and you don't really know where to begin, this is a great starting point. But if this is something you've already been exposed to before, I would say this one's probably a pass. So I'll keep that one short and sweet because this is more of a niche audience this one is speaking to. That is The Inspirational Leader. Next book was our audiobook of the month. This was The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley. Not exactly sure how to say that. Hopefully we'll get to talk about this author's name more in the future because this was actually her debut novel, which is crazy. This book was extremely good. I feel like this book has kind of been doing its rounds recently after Haley Pham mentioned it and gave it 5 stars. I think I've seen Destiny read this book as well. Did enjoy this book and I did like the audiobook, so I would recommend. The main point of view we get in this book is a woman who is working as part of the Ministry of Time within the British government, and she gets offered a role as a bridge. And a bridge is part of this top secret time travel project that the British government has been working on. They were able to bring like 7 expats from the past, and then each of them is connected to a bridge, and the bridge is there to kind of help mend the gap in their knowledge of past and present. The bridge is with them every day, living together whenever they're first brought into present day. She gets paired with a man from 1847 named Commander Graham Gore. His original history was that he died on a 1845 Arctic expedition that went wrong and everyone died. Her role is just to live, assist, and then monitor how he's doing while he's coping and adjusting to present day life. She's kind of like his handler throughout the process if you were to think of this as a spy novel. And I bring that up because there's definitely, once you get to the second half of the book, kind of like a spy, espionage, conspiracy backdrop that happens. But the first half of the book is like extremely mundane. It's just like his first introductions to present day, where he doesn't know what a microwave is, the toilet works different, he doesn't know a lot of present day terms that she has to define for him. So first half just like very much mundane as they get adjusted to how the world works currently. Second half of the book is where a lot of like the conspiracy and the espionage takes place, and the last like 10% of this book was insane. I kind of was getting lost in the sauce. There were like a lot of things working on top of each other, like a lot of betrayals going on. It was kind of hard to make sense of who is who. Definitely like missed a couple of key components. So that's maybe my bad on why I only gave it a 4 stars instead of 5, because I was getting a little bit confused at some points. But like overall, I would definitely read anything else this author brings out because her writing style was so unique and she does such a good job of painting the picture. And she describes a lot of different time periods within this story because not everyone is from 1847 when this guy is from. There's a wide range and she covered it nicely, and it didn't feel like she was in a rush to tell the story. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've never said the main character's first name, and that's because in the story we never learned her first name. Isn't that so weird? I don't know if I've ever had that happen in a book where you don't know your main character's first name because it takes place in her point of view. So my name's Tyler. It's not like in my head I go, Tyler said. And whenever her expat is communicating with her, he mainly calls her Bridge and never references her by her first name. It is so weird. What a choice to make by the author. I wonder why she did that, but yeah. Never know the main character's first name. Super cool book, super unique. My first sci-fi, and I can truly say like this is not like something I've ever read before. Definitely makes me want to pick up more sci-fis because while there were certain components where I was a little bit confused, it gave me similar vibes of fantasy, and it is really captivating and unique. Again, like I like a story that's never been told before, which is definitely what you would find with this book. So I would totally recommend this book if you're at all interested in history, in government politics, in espionage, and then time travel as well. So that is Ministry of Time. Okay, last book on Kindle, and then I promise we're going to talk about some physical books. We have The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. On my Goodreads review, I literally wrote, this book had no right to be this good. Why did I love this book so much? It took me by complete surprise. This is a hockey romance, the first book in the series, Behind the Net. The male main character in Behind the Net, we follow one of his hockey teammates, and the female main character in Behind the Net, we follow her sister. My male main character's name is Rory. I found a really cute collage of this on Pinterest, so I want to put it here. Rory is like a super cocky, golden retriever, playful hockey player. And then Hazel is a sports therapist slash yoga teacher, and she's kind of like that black cat energy, which I very much resonated with. I loved Hazel. I feel like she's probably the closest character I've read that reminds me of myself. And funnily enough, Rory reminded me of Hunter. So maybe I liked this story so much because like in some weird alternate universe where Hunter is a hockey player, like maybe the story could be about us. I don't know. But anyways, they start fake dating because Hazel's ex-boyfriend gets transferred to the hockey team. And this ex-boyfriend, Connor, is literal scum on the bottom of your shoe. He is the worst human being ever. He was so terrible to her and caused like so much emotional damage. So after Connor, Hazel was always like, F hockey players, I'm never dating another hockey player. And Rory had been like pining after her all throughout Behind the Net, and she always was just like, no, 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 like I don't do hockey players. But her ex joins the team and starts making comments about like how she requested to be his physical therapist on purpose so she could like touch him, and then he like wanted her to stretch out his groin. Like this man's is the worst. So she like pulls over Rory and she's like, oh, didn't you know we're dating? And he followed them, like make Connor so jealous, and it's the best. I was smiling and giddy the whole time. I didn't rate Behind the Net that highly. I rated Behind the Net 3 out of 5 stars, but this was 5 out of 5 perfection. The banter in this book was everything. I loved their banter. I even signed up for her newsletter just so I could get like an extended epilogue because I loved their relationship so much. I kind of like questioned myself and maybe doubted myself, like, is this really a 5-star? Like, this is just a little silly hockey romance. Like, this is not life-changing, but there's literally not one thing I would change about this story. Is it some literary masterpiece that is going to be studied for years and years? No. But is it a hell of a lot of fun? Absolutely. Would not fault a single thing. And I would be surprised if she would just stop at 2 books within the series, considering there's a whole team that she can go through. So I am so excited to pick up book 3. Let me check Goodreads to see if there's like an anticipated date for that at all. Okay. No, sad, there's nothing yet, but this was only published in December of last year, so about 6 months ago. It does look like she has another series. It's called the Queen's Cove series, and it starts with a book called That Kind of Guy. Maybe I'll give that book a shot because honestly, I absolutely love The Fake Out. I have no idea how this book was so good, but I loved it. Perfection. Let's keep these good vibes rolling with another 5-star. I have a whole reading vlog on this, so I really shouldn't talk about this too long. Do also want to say we got a couple new subscribers from that video, so hi, thank you for watching. More reading vlogs coming, but we finished out the ACOTAR series with A Court of Silver Flames following Nesta. Found another little mood board for this one, so we will enjoy that here quickly. Love Pinterest. Love Pinterest. I love seeing my book boyfriends come to life. I'm sure almost everyone knows the plot of this book, but we follow Nesta, Feyre's sister, throughout this book, and we go through the journey of unpacking a lot of emotional damage that she's gone through, unpacking a lot of grief, a lot of trauma, and it ends with seeing her the strongest she's ever been in her whole life. Not only is she strong, but she has a community behind her, and it's just so heartwarming to see her character progression. If you've read anything about ACOTAR, Nesta is extremely unlikable. She treats almost everyone around her like garbage, but that changes throughout the story. This is definitely her redemption arc. It's long, it's 750 pages, but Sarah J Maas packs a punch within this book. I would say this is a combination of Feyre's story within ACOMAF and ACOWAR, because you get the relationship development and personal development that you see within ACOMAF, but then you also get a lot of political scheming that you see in ACOWAR. Both of those books were 5 stars for me. This book is also 5 stars. It's not my favorite in the series because I love Feyre and her relationship a little bit more, but Nesta, can't fault the girl. I really liked her a lot more by the end of this, and I love her love interest. Don't want to spoil anything, but the Bat Boys have my heart, and that is Court of Silver Flames. Okay guys, you're literally not going to believe this, but our next book is also a 5 stars. Can you believe the emotions I was going through at the end of this month, having 3 5-star books in a row? Insane. Insane. This book also took me by complete surprise. Powerless by Lauren Robert. This is actually a YA fantasy, and the YA aspect is a huge reason why my hopes were not too high with this book. I don't seem to have the best luck whenever it comes to young adult centered books, romances, or fantasies. I'm 24, going to be turning 25 in a couple months. I just tend to get a little bit bored within YA. I think it's a little bit cringy. I just feel like overall I've outgrown it. I don't know what is in these words. Well, actually I do know what was in these words. Freaking lyrical, beautiful, poetic language is what is within these words. Kai's quotes in this book. Oh my God, I went on a whole rant in our most recent weekly vlog. Okay, let me get back to the plot. I'm getting way too excited right now. Powerless. What's it about, you may ask? Let me stop and tell you about what it's about. First, you get introduced to Peyton, who is our female main character, and she is an ordinary hiding within the world of elites. So being an ordinary, she has no magical powers, but she pretends that she has magical powers by being a psychic. Ordinaries are banished and killed if found within elite, because there's this idea that ordinaries are like sucking the magic away from elites, and elites don't want to lose their magic, so therefore kill off all the ordinaries. But her father is killed whenever she's like 13 years old, and her mother died in childbirth, so she became homeless at the age of like 13. She ends up finding a friend her first few years while living in the slums, Adina, and that's her found family. One day, while living in the slums, she unknowingly saves one of the princes of the kingdom, Prince Kai. Prince Kai is being groomed to be the enforcer of Illyria, and his brother Kit is being groomed to become the next king. So Kai will work under Kit, kind of being his like leading military commander or enforcer. One day, Kai is in the slums where Peyton lives on a mission, and he starts getting attacked by a person called a silencer. Silencers take away all of your ability to use your powers, so he's powerless against this person. And Peyton, because she doesn't have any powers to begin with, isn't affected by the silencer. She attacks the silencer to give Kai the time to recover and be safe. And it's this huge deal that she was able to defeat a silencer, because it's like impossible to defeat them whenever you're stripped of your power. That's our backdrop for how they met. She saves his life. Then we get introduced to like our actual point of the story, where it's very Hunger Games-esque. There are these purging trials that happen, I believe, every 5 years, and Peyton gets nominated to be within the purging trials because everyone kind of sees her save the prince, and she gets nominated against these group of kind of like the best of the best elites in this Hunger Game trials to find like who is the baddest and who is the strongest within the kingdom. Obviously Kai is within the trials as well. And because this is just like another series of tests within his journey to become the enforcer, the trials are like a little bit different this year and a little bit harder. And the trials is kind of where everything crazy goes down. Literally, Peyton in the story is Katniss Everdeen versus President Snow, who is the king of Illyria, Kai's dad. We have complete enemies to lovers because Peyton is everything the kingdom is again. Peyton should be banished and has to conceal her actual identity throughout the whole time. We get dual POV, and thank God for it, because this is where I was going off earlier. Kai's POV, it is perfect. It is perfect. Please, can the next book in the story just be like all in Kai's perspective? I would die of happiness. And while I did have the physical copy and largely read this, I also listened to this a bit on Spotify, and the narrators in this book are really good. The male narrator for Kai was chef's kiss. But like, I literally cannot say enough good things. The quotes, the ending, the plot twist. This book was so good. It was just over 500 pages, and I really don't think that it dragged at all. A lot happens. Different to the Hunger Games, the trials that they're in is not just one event, it's multiple events. It gives us more time with our love interest, gives us more high stake, and the trials just get like continually more dangerous as time goes on. This was Lauren Roberts' debut novel. Tell me how. Tell me how this is a debut novel. This was so good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. That is Powerless. After those two fantasies, we have, I called this a fiction book called The Good Part. There are romance subplots within this book, but generally it is categorized as fiction. We get introduced to our main character, Lucy, and her life just kind of sucks. She's 26 years old. She hates her job. Her living situation sucks. She kind of feels like she's getting left behind in life. Her dating life is an absolute train wreck. And one day, after a terrible day and a terrible date, she comes across this wishing machine. And as the title would infer, she just wishes, like, take me to the good part. I want to be taken to the part where I'm happy. I am in a fulfilling relationship. I'm killing it in my job. I have a great family. Like, just take me to the good part. And the next day, wouldn't you believe, she wakes up 16 years later. She's married, she's in her dream job, she has 2 kids. Follow her navigate this new world. Giving 13 going on 30, which the author even mentions at the end in her acknowledgement. She took inspiration from Big, 13 going on 30, The Family Man, and Freaky Friday. So like all of those like early 2000s bangers, very much giving the same in this book. But like, I mean, she gets taken to her new life in like chapter 2, and this whole story takes place in the future. But what I kind of like didn't get is she got everything she wanted. Her life is what she wanted it to be. But then like once she gets everything she wants, like not happy that her wish came true. I don't know, I was kind of confused. I was like, girl, you wish to go here, now you're here, and now you're like, oh my god, I just want to go back. And I totally get being like disorientated, especially if you have no one to talk to about it, but her husband in this story is like such a sweetheart, the world's most caring, sweetest man that's ever existed. He's like so considerate, so compassionate, wanting to help her, so understanding. And she's just like low-key kind of terrible to him throughout this book. I'm like, I don't get it. You literally got what you wished for, and now you're mad about it? I don't know. I felt like that part wasn't well developed. The ending was just kind of okay. I like understood the point the author was trying to make, but again, like I think it could have been better well done. So this book like wasn't bad, wasn't overly good. Not something that I'm literally ever going to think about again, because it is a story that's been told throughout all of those other films mentioned. It's not overly new or original. And that doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, it's like a comforting read. It's somewhat of a mindless read, but nothing I would like rush to the bookstore to buy. I landed on a 3.5. That's probably like a little bit generous. Maybe this is like a 3.25, but it's not bad. It just didn't leave me with much of an impact. So that is The Good Part. Okay, only 2 books left. We're coming up on the end. Our next book is One for My Enemy by Olivie Blake. And guys, this was our 4th 5-star of the month. What? What? Before this, I think I was averaging about like 1 or 2 books a month 5-star. I don't know what happened this month. TBR jar, she kind of set me up for success, not gonna lie. There were just so many good books. Throughout reading this book, I knew I was definitely like 4.5, but I don't know, by the end of it, I was like, you know what, this is a 5-star. This book was stunning. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. However, couple caveats. It takes place in present day in New York City between 2 rivaling witch families. So we have the Fedorov boys, where it's their dad, who's kind of like a crime lord, and the 3 boys, versus the Antonovas, where it's their mom and 7 daughters who have built up their own criminal empire and are looking to expand. And it's throughout the expansion process that things start to go awry. We start finding a lot of connections between certain brothers and sisters going on between these 2 families. There's a lot of scheming, there's a lot of shifting loyalties, there's double crossing going on left and right. This book is broken up kind of interestingly. It's broken up in acts, similar to how a play would be, like the actual Romeo and Juliet story. And so we'll be like in Act 2. And one thing I love, which I just felt like was so beautiful throughout the story, is we'd have these different illustrations after each act was introduced. Here's another one. Absolutely stunning. Loved it. From what I can remember about Romeo and Juliet, keep in mind, I studied this in like 9th grade. So this was a while ago and it was with a 9th grader's mind, so I probably missed some nuances, but I feel like the actual plot line of Romeo and Juliet we're done with by page like 200, so about midway. And then this book just goes like crazy after that. Because once we hit that midway point, I was like, okay, I feel like we've kind of like established the Romeo and Juliet part. Like, where are we gonna go from here? A craziness ensues. The story is so not over yet, so like buckle in. This book is on audiobook, but if I were you, I wouldn't read this on audiobook because at the very start of the story, you get introduced to all of the characters. And having this sheet with all of the characters listed and their relations is like very helpful to have as a reference point because, I mean, the Antonova girls, there's 8 of them. And then the boys, there's 4 of them. And then there are a bunch of other characters along the way. But the writing within this book was stunning. My literal only regret while reading this is that I didn't start highlighting things sooner. But let me try and find some quotes for you guys because this was so beautiful. Okay, this is totally out of context and I'm not even gonna tell you who says this, but I just want you to hear like the beautiful language. This one is not for you, he knew. But please, please, may I borrow her from someone else's fate. May I have her until her stars change or mine. May I worship her until I die, and may I give her all of me for better or worse or surely worse. A woman like Mara Antonova inspired a feverish sort of reference, an affliction. If it was a dream, he seemed to say, then let it end in the morning. Let the sun do its worst. I keep my word, he rasped against her mouth, and his kiss was a pulse of strange familiarity, a strike of dull impossibility, a moment that folded over itself in time to bring her a glimpse of perfect synchronicity, newness and repetition all at once. What? You can't put words like that on a page and expect me not to give this a 5 stars. Stunning. And plot, so complex. Absolutely no lack of things going on. So if you're someone who tends to get bored in books, I would highly recommend this. And I really wouldn't let the whole Romeo and Juliet part deter you if you aren't a fan of that. This book has so much more to it. It's a loose retelling, not an exact play-by-play. So there are plenty of new things that go on in here that will take you by surprise. That is One for My Enemy. Okay guys, here's our last book for the month. This book is niche. I would dare to make a bet that most of you have never heard of this book. And I wouldn't fault you for that. I don't know how on earth my mom found this book to give to me, but we have Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. What a title. She grabs your attention, that's for sure. This, I would say, is mostly a self-help and a spirituality book. But think of like The Body Keeps the Score. I haven't read that book. From my understanding of its general plot is it introduces you to the idea that like unresolved trauma, unresolved issues are going to resonate in your body somehow. Your body holds on to that trauma and that can manifest in different ways. This book is saying almost the exact same thing about your feelings. Unresolved feelings, unresolved trauma, unresolved emotional responses are going to manifest itself in certain types of ways within your body, and you're typically going to find that through illnesses. So I highlighted one page specifically where I felt like the author does a really good job of just kind of summarizing the whole idea of the book. It says, if the negative conditions in your life are ongoing and the patterns are repeated over and over again, this is telling you, screaming at you, that you are definitely out of harmony with natural laws, the laws of the universe. One of the more obvious indications that your feelings and thoughts are inharmonious or out of sync with natural laws is when health problems appear. Illness reminds you of your purpose in life, to return to the original pattern of balance. Pain of any kind lets you know that you are out of tune with natural laws. Illness is the result of imbalance. So this book's whole premise is to teach you this tool, which she calls a script, but it's kind of similar to a prayer, but it's a prayer you say to yourself. It's not a prayer you're directing outwards. It's a prayer you direct to your spirit. So you say like, spirit, please. And you're talking to yourself, your innermost thoughts, feelings, on like a cellular level. She teaches you how to process these different feelings that might be afflicting you through literally any type of illness you might have, like she names it. She just has like list and list and list of different illnesses and potential underlying feelings that may be causing it. So like nosebleeds could be due to feeling overlooked. Moles could be feeling inadequate or unworthy. Motion sickness, fear of not having control, multiple sclerosis, liver issues, lockjaw, hernias, hives, Hodgkin's disease, like literally anything you name it, even up to cancer, because her husband was diagnosed with leukemia, and towards the back of this book, she claims that they like cured his leukemia with this script. So take this with a grain of salt, like take this for what you will. I definitely believe that your headspace, your mindset is going to determine your outcome. And those in a very negative headspace, in a very fear-based headspace, tend to have the worst things happen in their life. I have a specific family member in mind who I think held so many negative emotions and was very verbally abusive, like through her throat, that ended up having esophagus cancer. Okay, so like I do think the problems and the feelings that you hold on to internally, I can completely understand and get behind how that will lead to certain health issues. Do I think this book is going to cure everything in your life? No. And she doesn't claim that she's going to cure everything in your life, but she kind of claims that certain underlying things that could be going on that medicine isn't going to be able to touch. And her tool is this script that you say to yourself to help you process these feelings so that they don't have an underlying effect on you anymore. So like, here's just one of her examples of daily situations. One thing she does a really good job of is like providing you a lot of examples to help you actually like apply this. But let's say something that you believe and you tell yourself is, things never work out for me. Part of the script that you could say to yourself is, I choose being a fortunate person. I am fortunate. I am a fortunate person. Things usually work out for me. I am blessed. Now, I'll be honest, like there's some things, some of these scripts I've said where I'm like, wow, I actually like feel better after saying that. So again, take it for a grain of salt. This is not going to be everyone's thing, but I'm super into hippy dippy shit. I mean, I think it's worth trying. I have some ailments that I'd like to get rid of, and like, if this could help me rather than doing like a multiple $1,000 surgery, I'll take talking to myself over that. I mean, this book is interesting. I gave it a 4 stars because, like mentioned, this book is old and there are some outdated examples, and this is also indie published. So like, it's not perfect, but if you're someone where you feel like I've literally tried everything, or I don't know why certain things happen to me, like I feel like I have the worst luck, I feel like this, stuck in a negative mindset, I think this is a really good introduction to spirituality practices, introduction to mindfulness, introduction to manifesting. All of those things are kind of combined within the tools within this book. It is an interesting read. So I'll leave you with that. That is Feelings buried alive never die. Okay, so we made it. That is the end of our June wrap up. Very excited to see what the second half of the year has in store for us. I was already getting really excited and planning out videos for the rest of the year. Please leave any video suggestions, any book suggestions that you'd like to see me read. We are so open to ideas. But with that, that's where I will love you and leave you. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.